Hey everyone, welcome to Devs in the Sheds. Let me add all four of us in here. How's it all going? It's been a week since we caught up with everyone in the audience. We have a very cool show in store for everyone this week. You can see that I'm finally in my shed, so I finally made it into the shed. It's been a little while. It's been very cold, very rainy in Australia, and very, 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 very wet. So today was okay, actually, first day in a while.
Yeah, I've had a damp shed. Like the floor of my shed is just water. So yeah, I have not been in the shed for a little while. Looking forward to some sunny days to start to dry some of that out.
Yeah, you should come to
Excellent.
Singapore. It's gonna be one season always hot. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and I can see that we've got a lot of new time people in. Let us know in the chat where you're all from. Today's episode is going to be on EKS. We're going to have a look at modern ops, specifically EKS blueprints. So, Chris, I'll get you to introduce yourself maybe very quickly. Do you want to just give us a little bit of your role at Amazon, what you do day to day, and your how you've kind of come into play with EKS blueprints?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So thanks, Matt. My name is Chris Zheng, and I've been with AWS for about 2.5 years, and I'm the partner SA for application modernization. So I look after partners across APJ. So my role day to day is, when it comes to application modernization, that is referring to containers and serverless services. So I was talking about a lot of Kubernetes, serverless, and cover that end-to-end architecture with partners to support them to build up their application modernization capabilities. So basically that's my role in AWS.
Very cool. Aaron, that sounds like a similar team to the one that you work in. Is that right?
Yeah, so Chris is in a similar area. He's in the core team, so Chris is a specialist, whereas I'm more of a generalist. So yes, it's people like Chris who, when people like me need hands or help, we call to bring in their specialist knowledge. So absolutely.
Very cool. Now, before we get stuck into it, I did have a couple of things that I was kind of excited about. So I might just bring up my screen before we touch into EKS. And I know that there's going to be some live code demos as well, but Chris is going to start us easy with a few slides in the deck. But give me 2 seconds to get my stuff up. Here we go. I think this is it. So and I'll make this very quick, but one of the really cool things that I thought people would be interested in is the mobile application for the AWS console now supports using Cloud Shell. So if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, you're probably not going to be doing significant amounts of work within Cloud Shell on either of those devices, maybe the iPad a little more. But if you do need to quickly make a change and you've got a laptop that takes 5 minutes to boot up and you need to get in there very quickly, Cloud Shell could be a pretty coal option for everyone. So I wanted to point that one out. And
that one, that one though, if you recall, it was a while ago, we were talking about using our mobile devices. Now I don't actually have to boot into my Linux emulator to access the CLI or the console from my mobile. So it's very helpful.
Excellent. And the other two are kind of related to EKS, so I thought I'd just quickly bring them up. App Runner now allows you to talk to privately accessible services within a VPC. Awesome. I know Paul was waiting for that one. So
I know that, like you just stole my thunder, Matt. Like, yeah, exactly. I know we're going to be talking about Kubernetes and containers, but I was just like, I just wanted to talk about these things because I was going through it. App Runner, like I'm a fan of it. It's really good. It's a really nice way to be able to, like, I don't know, get somebody else to do all the heavy lifting with what you're doing. But also when you're building containers, it's a really great way to get started. But these were the number one thing that our customers were asking. How do I connect to resource within a VPC? And like, this is what we see here. I did a talk at AWS Innovator around how we can connect our App Runner services to an RDS instance running inside a private VPC. I'll find the link and I'll share that around later. And then there's a second one, Matt, that you've got up here. So, yep.
Yeah, I hit it in the background.
This is the second one.
Ruby. Anyone in the chat doing Ruby at the moment? Let us know. PHP, Go, and .NET as well. AppRunner now supports those languages, so this is really cool to see an extension to what we had today. If I remember correctly, it was like Python, JavaScript. Was there anything else that AppRunner supported? Like,
I think there was Java. So Java came out recently, but yeah, it was Node, Python, and Java. But now we've got PHP and Go and .NET. You can sort of see that some of this is coming from what we used to see in like CodeStar and Beanstalk. We used to see these environments there. So I mean, that's what we're sort of seeing when we think about AppRunner. It's the next evolution of what those services should be. So I'm pretty excited to see these releases. I'll probably do some posts around how to build some of this and get this up and running. I know I have like a video on PHP and Lambda, and it's like I get so many comments about that. So PHP is still used so heavily, and it's good to see that they're listening to the customers on this.
Yeah, and for those that aren't too familiar with AppRunner, it basically is, as a developer, you might be building a particular application. You might have a Docker file that you've created for the application, and you're just like, I need to get it live on cloud, and I don't have time to do all the steps that I'd normally take to get something live onto cloud, properly. And so you might just usually look to Beanstalk to do that. So you might just go like, Beanstalk, can you take all the stuff, like put it on a server, manage it for me, right? Like I want it on an EC2 instance. AWS AppRunner, similar logic, right? Like it kind of like, if you think of like EKS or ECS being the container services that we've got on offer for customers, then you think Fargate kind of takes some of the management of those away, some of the operations of those two services away from you, helps manage those things. AppRunner is basically like just give me an app, give me a Docker file, give me a couple of configs, and I'll have it up and running for you. So as a developer, it's really, really great if you need to get something in quickly, or you're still learning cloud, but you want to see things up and running. And under the hood, it is using like ECS and Fargate, I believe. I think it's ECS, not EKS. But it's just, you can tap down into those individual elements if you need some more customization over time for your apps. I will stop that screen share. Okay, I've already killed it. Good. I might pass over to you, Chris. I know everyone's excited to hear about EKS blueprints. Do you want to reshare your screen? Is that the best place to start for everyone?
Yep.
And here we go. And I've popped up your screen. So do you want to kick off with? It's actually go back one. We've just lost the presentation.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. There we go. Do you want to kind of like take us through EKS blueprints? I actually, to be honest, haven't used EKS blueprints, so I'm interested in this one in particular.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So basically, EKS Blueprints is a open source development framework that allows you to programmatically build and maintain EKS environments using infrastructure as code. So it currently supports, there are two flavors, Terraform and CDK. Okay, so I think that's, especially when it comes to, the customers or the partners, right? They have existing EKS workloads, the Kubernetes workloads running, right? So this is a good place for them to manage and maintain everything in the Kubernetes clusters, right? So sometimes it's going to be very troublesome for them there's a lot of stuff in the cluster, for example, the add-ons, the permission, the RBAC, security. So it's EKS blueprints, right? Kind of bring all these things together in one place, so they can just manage using the code they prefer. Is a CDK or Terraform, right? So but also I saw people using it not only just maintaining the clusters, but also using it to build new Kubernetes applications using blueprints as well. So today's demo, I will focus on how to use the blueprints to spin up your clusters with some custom add-ons and also some custom themes that you can build into the clusters. The good place to start with, right, is there's a quick start. So later on I'll show you. Actually, there's a link here, right? So it's very easy to use and browse. You can get all the reference architecture from that quick start, and there are a lot of code snippets, right? The ready-to-use scripts for each of the core modules, the core features that you can just copy and modify a little bit, and you can just use it to deploy your EKS clusters using the existing code. And also for each of the functions, right, there's some step-by-step guidance that you can just follow through to build up your either your, the add-ons or the team's permissions, the cluster providers, and so on and so forth. All right, so I want to quickly just walk through the core concepts of the EKS blueprints. The first one is the compute, right? So the compute is the most fundamental components of EKS clusters. And in EKS blueprints, we use a configuration called cluster providers. So to manage the compute configuration of your EKS clusters, it currently supports the compute options, including EC2, okay, bottle rockets, and Fargates. And when you're using the cluster providers to provision the compute, right, for your cluster, so there are currently 4 types. The auto scaling group, so that is mainly meant for self-managed node groups, and there's a managed node group, and there's a Fargates. The Fargate is to provision the serverless compute for your cluster, and in that case, you need to create your own Fargate profiles to attach to your configuration. And there's also a generic cluster provider, which is like a combination of any of those 3 that we just mentioned. Cluster provider also allows users to configure your blueprints in more details. For example, typically we'll configure the instances, the type, the family, the minimum size, the max size, the design size, capacity type, and so on and so forth. So all this configuration available in the cluster provider. So in the demo later, I can show you a little bit more in details how that actually works. So the second part is the add-on deployment and configuration. So the EKS blueprint, the framework, right, it leverages a modular approach to manage your add-ons that run within the context of a Kubernetes cluster. So at the time of this session now, EKS Blueprint supports more than 30 add-ons. So it includes the AWS specific ones like load balancer controller, VPC CNI, and others. We also have the support for the community-based add-ons like Cluster Autoscaler, Argo CD, Nginx. And also we have the third-party add-ons like Datadog, Dynatrace, HashiCorp, and so on and so forth. You can also create your own custom add-ons because EKS blueprints, right? So it is designed to be extensible. So you can just implement your own implementation, right, to inherit from the add-on interface and put the implementation details for that specific class for your add-on. So the last parts of the EKS, the blueprints, right, it provides the support is the cluster access and permission management for the users, the roles, or the groups. This makes the team onboarding and management easy, right, via the cluster configurations. Currently, EKS blueprints is support 2 types of the teams: application team and platform team. Okay. Application team, it represents the teams that have permissions to access their own workloads running in their own namespaces. Platform team represents the platform administrators who have admin access to the clusters. And this is being abstracted to the user in the form of the construct called team. And similar to the add-ons, right? So you can also create your own team implementations by creating classes that inherits from the team interface. So this is the last slide, I promise, just to summarize. So the EKS blueprints provides the ability to configure and deploy EKS clusters with specific compute options. For the add-ons, it provides the full lifecycle management, and it provisions all the relevant AWS resources as well to support add-on functionality, primarily the IAM role for the service accounts. For team management, it provides the clear separation between the application team and the platform teams. It also assigns the permissions accordingly for the team members and roles based on the team type. And lastly, but not least, for application delivery, it provides GitOps tooling and the configuration to deploy workloads using GitOps methodology, using add-ons like Argo CD to manage both your infrastructure and application deployments with a single source of the Git repository across multiple clusters in multiple environments. So with that, I just want to quickly pause here. And any questions?
So there was a couple of things there that maybe for some of the audience that you might want to just expand on just briefly, Chris. And the first one would be Bottle Rocket. So I pasted the link into Bottle Rocket. Maybe just give us a quick overview of Bottle Rocket for some people that haven't seen that. I know that it's been very popular and has really become one of the things that even my customers are taking as just mainstream now.
Yeah, sure. Bottle Rocket actually that is a container optimized AMI. So that has all the facilities installed in that AMI. So it's gonna speed up your Bootstrap process for any container provisioning. So by using the Bottle Rocket, right, which is available in AWS, you can just specify the AMI image, or you can, in the EKS blueprints, even easier, just specify the AMI type as Bottle Rockets. So the node group is gonna be provision instances that's based on the Bottle Rockets. So that will give you, all the environmental facilities installed in the AMI. As a Bootstrap is gonna, you can see the increase of the speed as when you're spinning up the new containers. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I think we've actually lost Paul. He looks a little frozen. So maybe we'll give him a little bit of time. There we go. He's actually dropped. No, that's perfect. Yeah, Bottle Rocket. Paul's put the link in the chat, so definitely take some time to check it out. I'll just put it on now as well, and go, Aaron.
I was going to say, like, as a summary of what you said, Bottle Rocket would be just like a minimal container, as in it only has the minimum of what you need to run your containers.
Yep.
Or I misunderstood. No, so that is correct. Ah, cool. Yeah, I've not worked with EKS or Bottle Rocket before. That's interesting. So it's in a way it's similar to, I guess you would say it's similar to how our Lambda operates on micro VMs.
Yep, exactly. So basically, it just has all the containers, because when you spin up containers, it will read all these different layers. Bottle Rocket give you all these facilities to speed up the process for that, and it's specifically made for the container workloads.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, no, very neat. Looks like Paul is having internet issues, so hopefully he'll be back on. I'll add him in if he does. But let's keep on going, because I know that a lot of people are going to be really keen for the live demos that we've got for today. A little bit of live coding, and in the chat, feel free to ask questions as well. I think Wompfox, thanks. The Bottle Rocket, I can't talk today. Bottle Rocket answer that you gave made sense to him in the audience, at least.
Yep. Awesome. So I will just have a quick demo. Give me a sec.
And Daily Push has mentioned that he's using OpenShift. I know that we've got quite a number of customers that are using OpenShift. I mean, there's many different options in the container market, right? Like you've got OpenShift, you've got EKS, ECS, standard vanilla Kubernetes, self-hosted. Here we go. I've just put your screen back on.
Yeah. My own experience has only ever been over ECS. I've never actually used Kubernetes. So like obviously Docker on my local machine, but then ECS whenever we use AWS. So it's very cool. Just the capabilities and what's available.
Yeah. I've been more of an ECS type of person with Docker, right? Previously, I've only done a little bit of Kubernetes. Paul, how's your Kubernetes experience? Like outside of the abstractions like App Runner and Copilot.
So I had a Kubernetes cluster running on a couple of old laptops and Raspberry Pis. I've got a NAS at home one of the QNAP NASs that I've modified and hacked that apart, and it's running K3s on it. So it's got a couple of little like home applications running on it. I would say I'm not like an expert at running Kube, but I do enjoy playing around with it. And a lot of that has been to understand what some of the challenges that my customers are going through. And by doing it all myself, you sort of have to, you have to like, I don't know, you have to go through all the process of setting it all up, which is why when you come to something like EKS, I can find one of the blueprints or one of the templates or one of the CDK implementations that's been built and deploy that whole cluster and all these extra bits like 5 times easier. I mean, that's arbitrary, right? 5 times easier. It's way easier than that, right? And then you get those pieces out of the way. Argo CI/CD, we had that at one of the sessions that I had at Singapore a couple of weeks ago where we built CI/CD for that. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice. Yeah, I think you're definitely the most experienced here. But you did remind me, I was running some stuff on Raspberry Pi, but I tend to think of it for some reason as Docker and containerization more so than Kubernetes, right? But yeah, let's get going. I've put your screen up, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, so what I have here, I already provisioned the CDK, and also I provisioned the clusters using the CDK, the EKS blueprints, right? So I did npm install, so with all the EKS blueprints. So what I have here, I just want to quickly go through the code. So you can see there are 2 main files. The first one is this one under the lib. This is the main, basically where your CDK project stacks or constructs, they are defined. And this is where most of the, the code changes will happen. Okay, so as you can see, right, it's actually leveraging the build pattern, which is one of the object-oriented programming development patterns. The other important file I want to highlight here is under, the folder bin. So this file is, this is like the entry point, right, of your CDK project. It's gonna load all the constructs that you defined in the lib folder. So that's the 2 main files. So I already provisioned the CDK clusters because it takes some time. I just want to do that before the session starts. I want to quickly run you through what I've built. There is just by running CDK deploy, right? So you provision this cluster. It's a very basic cluster and has like one node group. It's a managed node group because there's no specifications in the code. And in the CloudFormation, you can actually, once the build is completed, right, the cluster is ready, so you can just grab the command. So this is a command you can just quickly connect to this cluster, right? So you'll be able to run the kubectl to connect to make commands to the API server of your Kubernetes. So I just quickly paste here. So once that is done, I can just run kube service and nodes and all these commands. So it's going to tell me what's the objects I have in this cluster. Okay, I want to run. So there are 4 namespaces right now. Okay, so the first demo I'm gonna do here is I want to show you how easy it is to provision the RBAC control for teams. Okay, so I just mentioned, right? So there are 2 types of the teams: application team and platform team. Okay, so application team is going to be specifically to that specific namespace of the team, application team. The platform team will have permissions to, basically the cluster admin is going to be in the system's master group. So we'll have the permission, the same permission as cluster admin role. So I've already got the teams folder here, right? There are 2 files created. This one is for application team. So it's fairly easy. You just extend that interface. Okay, there's one. Actually, there are 2 parameters for this class. The one is the name, the team, name of the team, and the second one is the account. The platform team, right? So this inherits the platform team interface. So it has only one parameters for this class. And under the teams folder, right, this one is more like, a loader to load all the, the constructs in the teams for the application team and the platform team, right? So this is like an entry point of the team folder. So I want to go back to my main file. Okay, so this is my main file. I want to, in the lib, what I'm going to do is I'll import, the team, the two files, the two classes. Okay. And in the builder, I just need to specify. So now I can use the two. So the application will need two parameters. I'll just say the first one is the team's name. Second one is the accounts, which is the environment variable. Okay, so that's it, just one line. Okay, one line of the code. So, and in here, what I'm gonna do, I just wanna CDK lists. So by running CDK lists, it's gonna synthesize the CloudFormation templates, right, in the CDK .out, this folder. So all the template JSON files gonna be generated here. And this will be used to deploy to the CloudFormation because behind the scenes, CDK is leveraging CloudFormation for the infrastructure deployments. And as you can see, there's one cluster stack that's listed here. So I just need to deploy. All right, so this will take a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I want to take you to the quick start that I mentioned, right? So this is the URL. Can I just paste in the comments?
Yeah, we can repaste back in, but give it a go. It should come through.
I cannot see the chat window.
Put it in private chat and we'll poke it through again.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, this is the place to get you quickly started, right? So all the core concepts I covered just now, for example, the teams, and while waiting for deploy to be finished, just quickly look at what are the resources to be created, right, by running that command. So there are two types of the team, okay, application team and platform team for now. So there's a code snippet already here, right? So basically, you can just copy, the code here. In this example, just change the username, of your own user, IAM user, the ARN. And what's gonna do, eventually, it's gonna create a namespace. Okay, it's gonna register the quotas, and also register the IAM users for the cross-account access, create a role for the cluster access. And we'll also register this role in the AWS auth map. Later on, I'm going to show you in the AWS auth map what is to be included. For the platform team, okay, so it's similar. It's going to create a register IAM users for the admin access to the cluster. So that will give you access to the kubectl as well as the console, and also register the existing role for the cluster access. Okay.
Yep.
So
we did have one interesting question actually, Chris, in the chat. When would you consider using blueprints versus Helm charts? So this is one that was coming up in the chat, and I know we're all kind of in the chat at the moment. But what's your opinion on that perspective?
Yeah, Helm is a package manager for the Kubernetes. So basically, EKS blueprints is more than that, right? So Helm not only just handles the packages, the add-ons, but EKS blueprints, right? It comes as a whole package. Takes into account of the RBAC, the user access control, the permission access, the GitOps, right, tooling. So all the add-ons, including the ones that's part of the Helm or not as part of the Helm, right? So you can create your own. There's a Helm add-on class interface you can implement. You can either inherit. You can also create your own custom add-ons, right? That's not managed by Helm. So EKS blueprints is like a whole framework that brings all the elements, right, including the Helm. So Helm itself as a package manager. So I mean that's the main difference between the two. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's all good. Anything else in the chat that's worth bringing to surface? I know that there's a lot of talk around when to use EKS versus like why some of us have decided to use ECS or Fargate. Skipping through the chat, anything Paul or Aaron that's worth sharing in the interim?
No, I think probably the most important call out there was to Daily Push's question. Yes, so Blueprints sits around Helm essentially, so it's managing your EKS deployment as well as being able to integrate with other components.
And I think the only other comment is like when people ask like when should I use Kubernetes or what should that be, it's like it's always like really it depends. I would say like the first decision is, am I supporting some vendor-based software that needs Kubernetes? If yes, then you need Kubernetes. If no, then you have to go down this path of discovering what it is that your team is trying to achieve, what the business strategy is, what the skills are, all of those pieces. But Daily asked another question. Are blueprints in TypeScript or they can be in Go? So this is a good question too. I don't know the answer to this.
In Go, because blueprints is based on CDK, okay, so TypeScript, so anything that's supported in CDK, right? So now I think it supports Go, Java, Python, TypeScript. I've got there's a full list, right? So Go is supported, yeah, as part of CDK.
So there's nothing additional in the blueprints. They're basically just L2, L3 constructs within CDK.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So the answer to that would be yes. CDK does support Go.
Yep. Okay, so coming back to the outputs, right? The deploy has been finished. So you can see there are the different roles. Okay, there's a service account created. There's a role for the application team, and there's a role for the platform team, right? So, but just quickly, just mention, right? So there's a namespace created as well. So if you just run kubectl get namespace, so you can see there's a namespace for the team, right? Chris Zheng created for the application team. Okay, so the roles that you generated, let's have a look at the roles. So there's one role here for this team. I just want to see what's the permission for this role. So as you can see, right, it's all the gets and the lists permissions. Okay, for the deployments, the pods, replica sets, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the first row. There's another row, by the way. If you just cluster rows. Oh, cluster. So there's another row. That's the cluster row. Okay, so if you that's on the cluster level. There's also the gets permission for the namespaces and then the nodes. So that's for the application team, right? The two roles that's created on the Kubernetes side, and also there's a IAM role. So basically, the user just now in this user, okay, so we'll be able to assume this newly created IAM role to access the console, the EKS console, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But before that, for the platform team, right? So you can also, as I mentioned, the platform team is going to be placed in the platform user, right? Created is going to be placed in the systems master group. So we have the same permission as in the cluster-admin. So we can just do config map, kube system, AWS auth. So in this config map, there are 2 roles, as you can see, created, the bottom 2. So this one is specifically for the platform team, the last one, okay? The username is platform as in the systems master group. So that's having, the cluster admin permission for this Kubernetes cluster, okay? And I have, just to quickly show you, if I logged in as the application user as well as, the platform user, right? So if I'm gonna switch role. Yeah, before that, let me show you in IAM. So there's 2 users, application platform, and the roles created, right? So one is create stat. Yeah, this is the role, and trust relationship is trusting this user, okay? And then there is another platform. This role created, we have the trust relationship to trust the platform user, okay? And if I've logged into this application user, if I switch role, yeah, so it's able to see the cluster, right? Because it has the get permission, but it doesn't have the permission to go, to see the Kubernetes objects in the different namespaces. And if you go to resources, it's going to be pretty much empty, and you cannot access all these objects of your Kubernetes cluster. However, if you switch role as platform role, let me get the account ID again. So you will be able to see all the, the objects, right? Replica sets. So basically, it has the admin access to all these Kubernetes objects. So that's the, how easy you can just create the 2 types of the teams in your Kubernetes clusters, right? So it's extremely convenient whenever there is a new application, you want to onboard that application team, right, to this Kubernetes clusters, while just giving them the permission to this specific namespace you assign to that application. So this is the way to go. Just with that single line of the code, you can just provision that permission and access for this application team. Yeah. Any questions before I jump into the add-on demo?
I think we're all good.
I think now's where we're going to actually see some apps and so forth being deployed, right?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. So the first one I will show you is I want to create a add-on. I just show you the example of how you create an add-on, okay, and attach that to your Kubernetes cluster. You just need a, I have an example here. What I'm going to do is blueprints, right? Cluster autoscaler add-on. So by just having this one line of the code and you just deploy it, right? So it's going to create the cluster autoscaler add-on, and eventually you can deploy your application and see how that actually scales out the pods, and also on the nodes level. So let me just quickly deploy this, save the change. For deploy, because the deploy can take some time, let me also just show you the other add-on I want to showcase. So this is another add-on, the KubeVS add-on. It's a dashboard for the Kubernetes cluster, right? So you have like a UI, you can visualize all the objects, the roles, the clusters, and the pods, and so on and so forth. All these different properties of your Kubernetes clusters. So this KubeVS add-on is meant for that. So this is the file. So it's quite straightforward. So there's this one is for the the user provided values. So this is not default Helm, the values for the Helm, right? So there are some custom values provided here. Just now I was asking, what's the difference, right? So this one is a custom made add-on with some custom values. So as you can see, this one, the default props, right? It's a combination of the custom values of the Helm charts, and also you can provide some, the user provided values. So this is the main class. It's gonna instantiate the Helm chart, right, based on those values that's you populate into the chart. This is the major function to format, the inputs of those user provided values. So, okay, so with that, I can just quickly show you if I want to. I have the class built already. Copy that class. But in the main file, okay, I just import that class. Cube. And then I'll just use that's newly imported. Okay, so that's it. So this will trigger the deployments for those two add-ons, the cluster autoscaler as well as the KubeVS add-on. And while waiting, I also want to show you in the quick starts, right? So you can go to the add-on. So there are more than 30 add-ons that's available. And if you want to deploy any of those add-ons for your EKS cluster, right? So you just go to the specific one, and there's a code snippet already available, and you can just copy and paste and make some custom changes.
I think this is like super handy because I know on my current Kubernetes cluster, like setting up the CSI drivers for EBS and EFS, but you sort of have to Google around a little bit. There's some manual work. Like this is just really nice to be able to leverage this and keep all of that configuration put together. And maybe now's a good time to ask Daily Push's question. Now, we might have got the context wrong, but I took the context of what Daily Push was asking. Are we storing this alongside with the application code typically? And my answer was like typically no, right? Like we would keep that separately. But I'd love to hear your opinion, Chris.
Yeah, that's where the GitOps methodology comes in, and I'll just illustrate a little bit in my last demo. So GitOps is becoming more and more popular in the Kubernetes world, right? Where you can just leverage a single source of truth with single Git repository to manage both your application as well as your infrastructure code. So whenever there's any code changes, right, there's leveraging this app of apps concept. So any of the new applications, right, you can just have a subfolder for that specific application, and any code commits is going to trigger not only the application build, right, but also the infrastructure changes. So your application code as well as your infrastructure configurations for your Kubernetes, right, is going to be sitting in that one single Git repository. And the common tools like Argo CD and Flux are going to give you the visibility, right? The visualization in that UI. You can just log in to see, the deployments of a specific application. You can have all these different options to roll back, blue-green deployments, canary deployments. So it's extremely easy to manage, especially have a very complex setup, multiple clusters, many applications. Just using that GitOps methodology is going to really make that process much easier for you. Does that make sense? Well, lost the audience on that.
No, I think that makes complete sense.
Okay, cool.
I think it's one of those questions where it depends, right? Like I'd naturally probably choose how Paul was talking in chat about how he'd do it, where you'd basically, like, for security reasons, you want to keep people away, and then it's also like when projects get to a certain size, that also makes sense. But then you could also counter argue exactly as you did. It's like when it gets to a certain size, you need better visibility, right? So
I would also argue on application patterns as well. So like if you're building a front-end application which uses microservices in EKS and you're doing a back-end for front-end type pattern, you might store it all together. Otherwise, I actually probably prefer, I would follow Paul's approach as well and have things separated out. But again, there's an argument for every different way of doing it.
I suspect like some of my opinion came from some of the enterprise size customers I work with, that they want these very clear separation boundaries between the infrastructure, the permissions, the security, the setup, and basically to apply somebody like this like minimalist approach to be able to deploy their applications. So yeah, it really depends, right? You know, we have customers that are using EKS that have like 4 people in the shop. And they have like full permissions to everything, and that might make sense. Then you have other customers that've got like, you know, thousands and thousands of nodes, so you know they got whole teams, and those teams have got like 50 people looking after the cluster. So yeah,
I think I looking on sort of, I personally haven't used EKS, but knowing engagements that I've worked on that do use EKS, I agree with what you're saying there, Paul, in so much as, and that's where I think it ties into the application pattern. When organizations separate things between infrastructure and applications, then you definitely have a separation. And here's your EKS cluster. It's not specifically what are the actual containers or apps running in EKS. It's more the management of that infrastructure. But then when you get smaller teams, definitely like startups and organizations where they need to get a lot done quickly, they tie the infrastructure in with the application itself, then the app and the infrastructure are one and the same. So it definitely depends on the type of engagement, and scale like definitely has a big part to play.
And apologies, Daily Push, that the auto mod kicked in and removed you when you mentioned crazy Git submodules. It was the crazy part, so I just overrode it. So apologies. That was funny. Yeah, I kind of like, I come back to it, right? And like if we think about like monorepo at a high level, it's like if you have a small team or you've got like a project where you want to keep everything close together, monorepo it. But if you're in a larger organization with security and you don't necessarily want people to be able to access everything in one repo, that's kind of where you break things up a bit. So completely depends on how you're running at the moment, right? Let's go back to you, Chris.
I just want to add a comment, right? So let me take a step back. What I just mentioned. So basically, there's usually we see people managing Kubernetes, right? So if they are running any, they want to have a central platform team. Usually we call it shared service platform, because Kubernetes will require certain knowledge, right? The skilled people has the Kubernetes knowledge to manage the Kubernetes clusters. If the team is looking to have a central management team, right, for the Kubernetes clusters, it makes sense to have adopt, the GitOps methodology and have like a central repo. However, understand, different scenarios, the enterprise customers, different customers, right? They may have different requirements in terms of managing the application. So this is where the segregation also makes sense, just really based on the different scenarios that we're talking about. Yeah. All right, just coming back to the demo. So as you this is a Kubernetes, the dashboard, and after installing the add-on, so you can see all this. It's going to give you like a visualization. So you can visualize all these objects of these Kubernetes clusters, and yeah, so you don't have to run the kubectl commands. So this will give you some nice, cool features you can just leverage by using this Kubernetes. This is a dashboarding add-on. The second one for the cluster scaler, right? So this is where the application is coming, and I have a quick, just have a look at how that actually works. So right now there's only one node. I want to scale, right? So the cluster autoscaler is already in there, the pod. And by the way, I do have this deployment file already created, right? It's very simple Nginx pods deployments. As you can see, it's a deployment type. there's only one replica, right? So to deploy for the Nginx application. So I can just, I want to run that. So deployment created. There's no pods. Interesting. Let me scale that. Okay. Now the pods are spinning up. And I just deployed, changed the deployment to have replicas of 10 pods. So as you can see, those pods are spinning up as in the pending status, because right now we only have one node. So we don't have enough capacity to host those 10 pods. So that's cluster autoscaler is going to trigger the additional nodes to be provisioned. And I think this will maybe take a little bit of time. Oh, yes, coming up. So maybe let's. Yeah, so you can see the nodes are spinning up already based on the pods that's in the pending status. So that's just a quick demo of the cluster autoscaler, and you can just quickly, the one line of code will trigger the installation of the add-on. So you can just leverage that to scale your use the cluster autoscaler for the scaling purpose. The last demo I want to cover is the Argo CD, which is the GitOps concept. And by the way, any questions for this part for the add-on installation?
I think the chat's still in the mono repo versus multi-repo conversation a little bit.
No, this is yeah. I mean, this is a single repository. Sorry, is it regarding the?
Oh no, it was what we were talking about before. It's like I think that the chat's detoured into like a separate discussion, which is always fun.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
No, I think you're good to keep growing, Chris. But some of the chat is just about mono repos, and what we end up building when we try to keep things simple, we end up building monoliths, and it's developer life.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't see the comments. Well, the last one on the cover is the Argo CD, right? So I don't want to type. There's quite some code. I just copy here. I want to quickly run through, right? So for the Argo CD, you need to bootstrap the Argo CD add-on. So that's the repo. Okay. Let me show you the GitHub repo, and in the code we specify for the bootstrapping for the URL, and also the revision is workshop, right? So if you go to workshop, and when you bootstrap in Argo CD, it's going to take the code from that repo, and also the path is environment inf/dev. You go to dev, so you have a look at the templates. So it's going to create a team Burnham namespace as well as the application under this, right? It's going to be some simple Nginx application. And once that is the bootstrapping part is completed, all you need to do is you come back here, right, in the add-on, because Argo CD eventually is an add-on as well. Oh, sorry, I can just leverage the call the class Argo. Yeah, this one line, and you just deploy CDK deploy cluster. So that's going to trigger the deployment of the Argo CD.
While we wait for that, we do have a couple of things that have come in chat. So Daily Push asked, are objects in EKS pretty much the same as Kubernetes, or is there some extra magic that we're doing with objects?
Sorry, what objects are you talking about?
I'll let Daily Push get back in the chat on that one. We did have two other questions actually from Delboy also. So how opinionated the blueprints are, and if they are quite opinionated, in what ways are they opinionated? If there's some extra blog post material that will help. That was his first question.
Yeah. Okay, so the blueprints, is right now is managed by a central team, right? So it's definitely opinionated, and the way that you manage your the code base, that's you in the blueprints, right? So first of all, you can leverage your own existing the classes and interfaces in the quick starts in the repo. And while as part of the nature of the CDK, right? So it's a OOP is a programming, so you can also create your own custom classes implementations of your maybe your custom libraries for your own purposes as well. So there's a lot of flexibilities that you can leverage the EKS blueprints, and so for that sense, it's similar to the CDK. It's leveraging CDK, so you can definitely make it with your own flavor to cater for your own requirements.
Cool. And I think the other bit was how flexible are they import existing VPCs or target specific AZs? I'm thinking because it's CDKs.
That's
really
a
leveraging.
Very good question. That's a very good question. And one of the things I cannot cover because of time constraints, right, is that if you go to the quick starts, there's two things I didn't mention here. One is the cluster provider. So this is the compute as I mentioned at the right beginning of the presentation. So there are 4 types of cluster providers, right? So this is mainly for the node groups configuration. The other one is a resource provider. So in the resource providers, that's where you can add all these complementary resources, for example, VPC, certificates, host zone, and all these AWS resources, right, as external resources into your Kubernetes clusters.
Very cool. Yep. And Daily Push has gotten back as well with his question. So he's saying, similar to Kubernetes or OpenShift, is there deployment objects? And when you want to prune, how does that look? Just reading out the rest of his comment.
Yeah. Personally, I'm not familiar with OpenShift, and it's like a managed platform, right, of the Kubernetes. I'm not quite sure how flexible or how easy it is to manage. Maybe I need to have a look into that and get back to you on this.
Yeah, I know that OpenShift at its core is Kubernetes, but there's a lot of extra stuff that I think it's IBM and Redshift have built on top of Kubernetes, right, to make it easier. Yeah.
It like OpenShift has an opinionated view on how you should do things such as pipelines and deployments. So, I've used OpenShift in the past, and that when we did that, we had a very clear distinction between the platform team and the team that were building and deploying software onto that. But it was, the way we were using was somewhat less flexible. So probably a bit of a difficult question to answer exactly for Daily.
I might just cover off the next question that's come through from Delboy around, should we consider these blueprints as CDK constructs? So I would say yes, they're L3 constructs, right? So level 3 constructs. To the second part of that, though, just curious why it hasn't been part of the CDK project. So the CDK team cover off obviously the L1, L2 constructs. So that's L1 is essentially the CloudFormation, 1-for-1 on how it works with CloudFormation. L2 is the opinionated individual constructs for those services, right? So it's taking the level 1 constructs, it's adding what we call sane defaults to it, so you can create a bucket without being open to the public, that sort of stuff. For L3 constructs, they're generally separated out to service teams who want to do, specific opinionated solutions outside of the L2, or like Chris and his team, different teams working on specific solutions that extend beyond the boundary of just the service itself. So now we're actually putting opinionated solution over the top. So generally, I don't have time to sort of chuck in all of the different libraries, but there are lots of libraries of L3 constructs out there, and these ones that Chris is taking you through now, these blueprints for Kubernetes, or K8, sorry.
CDK.
CDK for EKS is one such library specifically to that. So they're not managed by the CDK team, because it would be too much to manage all of the different types of solutions at the L3 construct level.
Hey, Matt, do I have a couple more minutes just to cover, finish the demo for the Argo CD?
Yeah, I think so. Although Paul and Aaron, do you guys have to run? I think you do, don't you?
I can stay a couple more minutes before my next session.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this quick. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so basically Argo CD deployment is done. So as you can see, right? So the Argo CD server, this is the main server. So for you to log into the backend, the Argo CD portal, right? So there's no external IP. So I just ran another command to expose, basically to create a load balancer, right? To expose this service for the Argo CD server. So now if I run this again, I can see this load balancer created. It's a classic load balancer, by the way. And I'm not sure it's ready or not. Let me have a look. Oh yeah, it is. Wait. Let's accept. Yeah, this is a portal. So if I quickly get the credentials. Yeah, so if I log in, right, so I can see the Argo CD UI already, and there's a Burnham this project created, and there's one application with Nginx, the service and deployment. So that I give you like a all-in-one stop visualization, right? So you can just come here with all the applications, and this is why the stuff I talked about regarding about apps. So eventually, if you're using Argo CD, right, so not only for your infrastructure configurations, but also you can have visualizations of all the deployments across all the applications. So this will give you a very good management from a management perspective, right, to manage the deployments and the automation of the cluster operations. And with that's for my demo for today. I hope it's helpful, and and you know more about the EKS blueprints.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris. I know that you had a ton to cover today, and I know we only showed half of it.
Yeah.
So thanks for running everything, running through everything that you could show today. And if people are interested, let us know in the chat. We can line up another episode with Chris on. He's got quite a lot of EKS knowledge that he's wanting to share, and I can see people saying that they'd like you back as well at some point, Chris. So good work there. We will wrap it because I know that Paul and Aaron have to run, and I'm out today on holidays, but also a little bit sick, so we might call it wrap up the stream. So thanks for joining us, Chris, again. Thanks for joining us, everyone on the chat. It's been really great. We'll catch everyone same time next week, and I hope you all have great weeks. Thanks, everyone.
And just one thing, Matt, before we go, just to remind everybody that yes, we will be at reInvent. So if anybody's coming to reInvent, like hit us up on Twitter or LinkedIn. We'd love to catch up with you guys. And yeah, as Daly says, Matt, feel better. Take it easy.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I'll see you.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Cheers. Bye.